Most days, my life looks deceptively calm. A quiet New England town. A tidy morning routine, espresso, weather report, a short walk to the office. On the surface, everything about me seems predictable, even forgettable. The woman who keeps to herself. The one with the serious job no one quite understands. The one who doesn't wear much makeup, doesn't chase attention, doesn't make a fuss. But don't let the stillness fool you. Beneath the surface, a storm had been brewing for years. My name is Nicole. I'm 32 years old. I co-founded a biotech startup built on precision, innovation, and discipline, things I've had to fight to be respected for, especially in a world that never expected much from someone like me. I live just outside Boston, in a place where the streets stay quiet after dusk and everyone pretends they know you well. But no one really sees you, especially not your family. To them, I've always been the strange one, the quieter one. The younger sister who chose spreadsheets over social gatherings, who found her strength in silence, who was too serious for her own good. And maybe for a while, I believed them, until the day everything came undone. And the truth, the one I had lived with quietly for so long, finally came to light. If this message speaks to your heart, let us know in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a moment of truth, healing, and hope. Claire, my older sister, is the one they're proud of. She's 3 years older than me and has always been the perfect daughter in their eyes. Beautiful, graceful, soft-spoken, and charming. Even in family photos, I was just a faint shadow behind Claire's spotlight. On Thanksgiving or Christmas, relatives would gather around her with praise. "Claire, you look stunning in that dress." Or, "Claire, your new boyfriend's a doctor. Impressive." And me? If anyone even remembered I existed, the line was always, "Nicole, yeah, she's doing something in biotech." I think they spoke as if I were a footnote at the bottom of the page. I used to think if I worked hard enough, if I stayed behind the scenes and carried the load, then one day my parents would finally see me and be proud, just like they were of Claire. But no. All the attention, all the expectations, all the compliments, they were always hers. And me? I was always distant, dry, hard to talk to. They never knew I'd stayed at the office until midnight handling a crisis for a public health project worth nearly $2 million. They never asked how it felt to build a company from scratch with 3 college friends. When people ask about my family, I just give a faint smile and say, "We haven't spoken in a while." It's nothing. Not because I'm hiding something, just because there's nothing left to say. We haven't talked in over 2 years. No texts, no calls, no birthday wishes, just silence, like a broken line nobody bothered to reconnect. I used to believe family was the place you could always return to, but one day on my mother's birthday, that belief shattered. It was late March. I had just closed a successful funding round with an investment firm from New York. I planned to take 3 days off and fly back early to help my parents prep for Mom's birthday like I always did. Nothing fancy. I just wanted to help out like always. When I called to let them know, it was my dad who picked up. "I'm planning to come back early. Let me know if there's anything you need me to pick up or prepare," I said. I still remember his voice. Not angry, just strange. A short pause. Then he cleared his throat. "Nicole, if possible, don't come home this year." I froze for a second, thinking maybe he was worried I was too busy with work. "It's okay, Dad. I've already cleared my schedule. I really want to be there." This time, his voice was firm. "Claire is bringing her new boyfriend. He's a CFO. Well-spoken, clearly successful. Your job? Well, it's hard to explain. You showing up would just invite comparisons and make things awkward, so it's best you stay." I went numb. My chest tightened, a cold sting crawling down my spine. I gripped the phone and said through clenched teeth, "Are you saying I make the family look bad? That I shouldn't come home because I'm an embarrassment?" He didn't take it back. In fact, he doubled down. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father." Then he hung up. No hesitation, no second thoughts. My apartment went eerily quiet. The espresso cup in my hand had gone cold. I stared into the empty air like the world had cracked open with a single sentence. I didn't cry. I just sat there. And for the first time in my life, I realized something. I was no longer part of the family I had tried so hard to hold together. I sat there in my familiar armchair by the window, early spring sunlight pouring through the white curtains, unable to warm the chill inside me. My father's words echoed again, clear and final. If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father. I looked down at my hands. My fingers trembled, not from anger, but from something deeper. The breaking point. I had always thought that even if I'd never be loved like Claire, at least I was still their daughter. Turns out I wasn't. I stood up and walked to my desk. Without hesitation, I opened my laptop and logged into my banking app. For over 2 years, I'd been sending money to my parents every month, covering their electric bill, water, internet, even cable. Nearly $6,000 a month, not counting the extra I'd send when Mom said the fridge broke down or Dad's car needed work. They never asked if I could afford it. They just said, "Claire's struggling after switching jobs. If you can help, that'd be great." And I helped quietly, as if it were my duty, as if responsibility were some invisible contract I'd sign the moment I started earning. If this message speaks to your heart, let us know in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a moment of truth, healing, and hope. I opened the transaction history and scrolled. The total popped up. $15,720. My heart sank. Not because I regretted it, but because even after all of that, I was never enough. I hovered over each bill. Electric, water, internet. Click. Then another. Notifications popped up. Auto payment canceled successfully. No alarms, no warnings, just silence. Just like how I'd always existed in my family. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was angry, but because I kept thinking about how everything unfolded. About what my father said. About how my entire family was willing to cast me aside just to impress Claire's new boyfriend, a man I hadn't even met. I'd been compared all my life. But this was the first time I was publicly rejected. As if my existence was an inconvenience. Mom's birthday came quickly. I didn't call. I didn't send a card. I didn't post anything online. Not out of spite, but because I couldn't pretend anymore. At exactly 5 p.m., as I sat on my balcony sipping peppermint tea, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then let it go dark. A message came in right after. "Nicole, why is the power out? Can you check for us?" I sat down my tea and opened the next message from Dad. "No water, no internet. Call the providers. Your mom's freaking out." I sat in silence, eyes fixed on the tree lean out back. No anger, no pain, just an eerie calm. They didn't ask, "Are you okay?" Not a word about the phone call. They just wanted me to do what I'd always done, clean up the mess. Then came a text from Claire. "The internet's down, guests are coming, and Mom is almost in tears. What's going on?" I picked up my phone and typed. 3 weeks ago, Dad told me if I insisted on coming home, I shouldn't call him my father. I'm just doing what he asked. If this is inconvenient, maybe find someone you're not ashamed to introduce. I didn't send it. I deleted it. Not because I regretted it, but because I knew no matter what I said, they'd only hear what suited them. I set the phone down, leaned back in my chair, and closed my eyes. My little apartment sat in silence. Still. Peaceful. There were no eyes watching, no criticisms lurking in the corners, no one making demands. Just me, and a calm I hadn't felt in years. The next morning, Claire left a voicemail. Her voice was sharp, trembling with frustration. "Mom's been crying all night. Do you even realize how important yesterday was? My boyfriend met the family for the first time, and you ruined everything. You're so selfish." I listened to it all, then shut my phone off. For too long, I'd been anything but selfish. Maybe now is the time to try it. I turned on my work laptop and opened the weekend operations report. One subject line grabbed my attention. New Jersey staff transfer to Boston. Curious, I clicked the attachment and scanned the names until one stopped me cold. Liam Prescott. My chest tightened. That name. I had just heard it 3 days ago from my mother. Claire's boyfriend Liam works at a big firm, she had said. I leaned closer to the screen. Current title: Head of Finance, New Jersey Branch. Transferring to Boston HQ, approver, Nicole Warren, co-founder. A laugh escaped my lips, uninvited. Not out of amusement, just disbelief. The universe had a wicked sense of humor. Something had begun to shift, and I could feel it. I sat motionless, my hand frozen on the mouse. An odd emptiness in my chest, like a long-lost memory, had been ripped away. Nearly $16,000. 0 cents. Every dollar, every cent paid by me. Quietly, punctually, without being asked, without thanks. Not once. Not once had anyone said, "Thank you." I scrolled through the list of payments again. $192.48, electricity. $136.72, water. $248.50, internet and cable. Over and over, month after month. Like I was some kind of invisible accountant they never acknowledged, never appreciated, just expected. My mind flashed back to that late-night call from my mom last year. "Nicole," the bathroom pipe burst. "Can you call someone? Claire's on vacation with her boyfriend. You're the only one left." The words stung in a way they hadn't before. You're the only one left. Not cherished. Not loved. Just the last resort. The fixer when the golden ones were away. And now, being told not to come home because I made the family look bad? The truth hit hard. Nothing I'd ever done had been met with love. I only existed when something needed to be solved or paid. And when I needed them, silence. My phone lit up again. A message from Mom. "Nicole, I know yesterday got a little tense, but if you could cover the internet bill, that'd be great. Claire's trying to keep things calm with the guests." I stared at the screen like a stranger reading someone else's drama. No apology. No recognition of my father's cruelty. Just another request. Like always. I didn't reply. I set the phone down and stepped out onto the porch. The wooden chair creaked beneath me as I sat under the soft, fading April sun. Boston wasn't quite warm yet, but the crisp air cleared my mind like a glass of cold water to the soul. I thought of Liam, Claire's boyfriend, and soon, my direct report. What a twist. They shut me out of Mom's birthday for him, and now he would answer to me. If life had a sense of humor, this was its best punchline. Back at my desk, I reopened the email. New hire confirmation. Liam Prescott. Transfer to Boston office. I clicked his profile. Everything lined up: his education, experience, degrees. The perfect resume. Just the type Claire would chase. Polished, promising, charismatic, on paper. Then I saw the photo. Familiar. Of course, we'd met briefly at a conference 6 months ago. He shook my hand and addressed me formally. Co-founder Warren. Neither of us had made the connection. I didn't care enough about Claire's world to know who stood beside her. But now I had a choice: approve or deny. Funny thing was, I didn't need to lift a finger. The stage was already set. I just had to watch. The next day, Liam arrived. Folder in hand, a nervous edge to his steps. He stepped into my office. His eyes met mine, then widened, full of disbelief. "Nicole," I gave him a calm, faint smile. "Welcome to Pacific Genomics. I'll be reviewing the financial plan for the quarter. I look forward to working with you." He froze. His face flushed, then drained of color. No one in my family knew what I did. They never asked. They assumed I was some clerk at a desk, not a co-founder of the company. I slid the contract across the desk. Liam took it silently and left. I leaned back in my chair. Not happy. Not angry. Just still. Like the wheel had turned, quietly, finally. And this time, I didn't have to say a word. The truth spoke for me. That morning, the sky over Boston wore a heavy gray veil. Fog lingered thick in the air. The world felt blurred, like something was about to crack open. I poured myself a strong black coffee, sat by the window, and looked out at the empty yard. No texts. No calls. No birthday post. I didn't need to act. I just had to let life unfold. At 9 a.m., my phone buzzed. Message from Mom. Nicole, sweetheart, I think the power's out. Can you check for us? It's an important day. I flipped the phone face down on the table. Her tone sweet, soft, like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't been told by my own father that I embarrassed them and should stay away. 15 minutes later, another buzz. Dad. Still no power. Water's out too. Something wrong with the payments? Call the provider now. Blunt. Cold. No concern. No mention of the exclusion. Just another command. Like I was still there behind the scenes tech support. I sighed. For 2 years, I'd paid every bill without fail. But the night Dad cut me off with a phone call and told me not to show my face, I canceled them all. Now, on Claire's big day, the house was in chaos. No lights, no water, no internet, just as expected. By 11 a.m., the messages started pouring in. Mom, Nicole, please, I'm begging. Guests are arriving. Can you help just this once? Dad. We can't cook. Where are you? Fix this now. Claire. Seriously, Nicole? Today is special. Mom's crying. No internet, I can't call anyone. I'm losing it here. Stop being selfish. I leaned back. My coffee had gone cold. Their panic didn't satisfy me. Their begging didn't thrill me. I felt nothing. Just a steady, numbing emptiness. Then another buzz. A video call from Aunt Sharon, the only one who still sent holiday texts, even when I didn't answer. I hesitated, then picked up. Her tired face appeared, lit by the flashlight from her phone. Nicole, she whispered, your mom's in a panic. The house is dark. Everyone's running around. No one knows what to do. I said nothing, just stared. She didn't scold me, didn't defend them, just asked, gently, what happened? You've never missed your mom's birthday. I know you have your reasons. Just say something. I inhaled, steadying myself. My dad told me I embarrassed the family. Said if I insisted on coming, I shouldn't call him my father anymore. What do you think I should have done after that? Aunt Sharon froze. Her face changed completely. In the background, chaos buzzed. Mom's voice loud. She's probably sulking. No one would be cold enough to do this. Then another voice, sharper. Claire, Liam's almost here. Someone call the power company. I can't believe she did this. I gave the tiniest, bitter smile. Aunt Sharon heard it all. She didn't speak. She didn't try to excuse them. She just held the screen. Then, a new face entered the frame. Liam. Same suit. Same polished look as on his resume. His eyes locked on the screen. He blinked. Nicole? Silence fell across the room. He stared in disbelief. You're Nicole Warren, the one who runs Pacific Genomics? I nodded, eyes steady. There was a long pause. Then Liam turned to the room and said, she's my direct superior and the one who approved my transfer to Boston. Silence fell like thunder. Claire's jaw dropped. My parents froze. Not a single word was spoken. I replied calmly, hope your introduction today goes well. Then I ended the call. Afterward, I set my phone down without saying anything more. Outside the window, the dim afternoon light slipped weakly through thick gray clouds. Everything was still, so still it almost felt unreal. No voices. No follow-up texts. No calls. Just me and a strange, weightless relief. The truth had been spoken, not by me, but by them. I didn't need to expose anyone. The silence was doing it for me. I remained quiet, letting things unravel on their own. Liam had said it all. I was his superior. I was the co-founder of Pacific Genomics, the very company my family assumed I was just a low-level desk worker for. And suddenly, my family's kitchen turned into a stage. A performance where the masks dropped, one by one, and no one could stop them. Then there was Claire, my sister, the same one who once whispered to Mom, Nicole should pick a job that's easier to introduce. Now she stood frozen beside a birthday cake that hadn't even been lit. She had tried so hard to impress her boyfriend, with sweet compliments and a perfectly curated family image. But in the end, it was her boyfriend who shattered the illusion by calling me his boss. I could see the entire scene in my mind, clear as a movie. My mother, so flustered, she nearly dropped the tray holding the cake. My father, face flushed red, gripping the edge of the table. And those relatives, who only ever showed up for food and judgment, sat in stunned silence, eyes darting around as they tried to process what had just happened. Aunt Sharon still had the call open. Her gaze had shifted. No longer curious, now it was something closer to respect. She didn't say much, just gave a quiet nod and ended the call. That evening, Claire messaged me first. Long, messy. A strange mix of anger and desperation. You knew all along, didn't you? You let it happen right in the middle of the party. Mom's been crying all night. Liam doesn't even know how to react. Don't you think that was cruel, Nicole? The message appeared on my screen. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I made a cup of ginger tea and sat down on the couch, letting the steam soothe the tight knot in my throat. I didn't feel joy, but I didn't feel guilty either. 10 minutes later, I finally replied. Just a few lines. No need for more. You say I was cruel. I was just at home. I didn't start the video call. I didn't call myself his boss. I didn't do anything. And if one simple truth was enough to ruin the entire party, maybe that party was never built on anything solid to begin with. I hit send. I wasn't waiting for a reply. Half an hour later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was my mom. I never expected you to choose this way to get back at the family. I closed my eyes and leaned back in my chair. Get back? Is that what they thought this was? I remembered being shut out of a family gathering, all because my job didn't sound impressive enough. I remembered the years spent quietly covering bills. Not one check-in. Not one thank you. Not 1 ounce of acknowledgement. I remember those days like shadows etched into my memory. Days when I tried so hard. Tried to fit in. Tried to matter. Tried to be noticed, heard, loved. I bent over backwards just to feel like I belonged. Every smile I forced, every opinion I swallowed, every time I dimmed my light just to make others comfortable, I did it all hoping someone would finally see me, accept me, care. But tonight, something shifted. It was like a switch flipped deep inside me. I was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. I couldn't do it anymore. I was done trying. Done chasing validation that never came. There was something strangely peaceful about that realization. Like I had finally exhaled after holding my breath for years. Then, around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. An email notification. I glanced at the screen, Liam. My heart stuttered for a beat. The subject line was blank. The message was simple, but heavy. Nicole, I'm sorry I didn't know sooner. I truly respect you for your work and for how you stayed silent today. I've never felt more ashamed, but not because of you. I read it slowly. Twice. Maybe 3 times. Every word carried weight, landing in the quiet corners of my heart. The silence he mentioned wasn't weakness. It was strength, restraint, maybe even dignity. And somehow he saw that now. A strange mix of feelings rushed in, vindication, relief, maybe even a little grief for the version of me that had waited so long to be acknowledged. Then I opened a blank reply. My fingers hovered over the keys. I wasn't quite sure what to say yet, but I knew this time I would speak not from a place of needing approval, but from a place of finally knowing my worth. Liam, you don't need to apologize. We all make choices about what we see, what we ignore, and how we treat people based on our own assumptions. That's not on me. Everyone is responsible for how they choose to see others, or whether they choose to see them at all. And just so, you know, I've always made it a point to keep my personal life separate from my professional responsibilities. Whatever I'm going through, I don't bring it into the workspace. I never have. But I hope that after today, you understand something that many people overlook. Sometimes saying nothing takes more strength than saying everything. With that, I hit send. Then I closed the laptop, powered down the screen, and gently placed my phone face down on the table beside me. A deep exhale escaped my lips, not of defeat, but of release. Tomorrow, I'd still show up at the office. There would be emails to answer, reports to comb through, back-to-back meetings, and more fires to put out than I could count. The world would carry on business as usual. No dramatic pause. No applause. No special recognition. But something inside had shifted. A quiet revolution. Because now they knew. The ones who had overlooked me in meetings, who spoke over me like my voice was an afterthought. The ones who dismissed my ideas until someone else repeated them. The ones who thought I was just nice, never realizing how much power lived beneath the surface. They finally saw it. They saw me. And even if they didn't say it out loud, even if their pride kept them silent, I could feel it. The awareness, the shift, the respect that comes not from demanding it but from earning it in silence. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. And that was enough. And I had done it without raising my voice, without pointing fingers, without demanding justice through anger or vengeance. No shouting, no dramatic accusations, no scenes, just presence, just truth, just silence. And yet, somehow, that silence spoke louder than any words I could have hurled across a boardroom table. I had made them go still, go quiet, reconsider everything they thought they knew about me. They weren't prepared for it. How unsettling it is when someone no longer begs to be heard, but simply lets their absence speak. Let their restraint become power. The next morning, the world felt different. I walked into my office just as the first light of day slipped through the tall glass windows. The early sun poured in like liquid gold, casting warm streaks across the floor, the desk, the framed certificates on the wall, reminders of every milestone I had reached on my own. There was something sacred about that moment. The stillness, the soft hush of a building not yet buzzing with conversation or footsteps. For once, it felt like the universe was giving me space to breathe, just a few seconds of grace before the daily chaos would unfold. I took it in quietly. A sip of coffee, a long exhale, a heartbeat of peace. Then I sat down in my chair, still upright from the night before, powered on my computer, waited for the familiar hum and glow of the screen as the system booted to life. And there it was, one unread message. The sender's name stopped me for a second. Liam Prescott. My eyes shifted to the subject line. Apology and goodbye. Something in me paused. Not from fear, not from anger, but from the weight of finality. Whatever he had to say, this wasn't just an apology. It was an ending, and I was ready for it. I hesitated for just a moment before clicking the email, my finger hovering over the mouse, my heart caught somewhere between curiosity and caution. Then I opened it. Nicole, I'm not sure where to even begin. I've started writing this message more times than I can count, and erased every draft. None of the words felt right. None of them felt enough. But last night, I couldn't sleep. Not for a second. My mind wouldn't stop spinning, replaying everything that happened, every word said and unsaid. And honestly, maybe it never should have happened like that, in front of everyone. That wasn't fair to you. It wasn't fair to anyone. I see that now. But somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, something strange happened. I found clarity, especially about you. I've been avoiding this truth for a long time, Nicole, and I think you knew that. Maybe everyone did. But I need to say it out loud now, because silence has already cost too much. I'm not ashamed that you're Claire's sister. What I am ashamed of is that I didn't see her clearly sooner. That I ignored the signs, the way she treated people, the way she treated you. I turned away from the truth because it was easier. But that doesn't make it right. And I can't keep pretending anymore. I can't stay in a relationship where respect, basic human decency, is missing. Where loyalty is expected, but never returned. So, as of today, I'm ending things with Claire. This isn't just about right or wrong. It's about waking up to reality. About choosing integrity over comfort. And watching you yesterday, the way you carried yourself, said nothing, and still stood taller than anyone else in that room. That showed me what real strength looks like. Thank you, Nicole. Not just for your work or your silence, but for your example. You led with dignity, with fairness, with power that didn't need to shout to be heard. I see that now, and I'll carry that lesson with me. Liam. I read Liam's message once, slowly, absorbing every line. Then I read it again. Not because I was surprised, exactly, but because something inside me needed to hear it twice to believe it was real. And no, I wasn't happy that Claire had been dumped. This wasn't about revenge, or celebration, or triumph over someone else's loss. That emotion never came. What I felt was rightness. Like something had finally clicked into place. Like the world had, just for a moment, corrected itself. For years, I had endured subtle jabs and invisible lines drawn in the sand. Claire always made sure to keep her cruelty quiet, just low enough that others didn't hear. And when I dared to speak up, when I noticed the manipulation, the dismissive tone, the backhanded compliments, I was told I was overreacting. That I was too cold, too analytical, not warm enough to understand how people really worked. Or worse, too sensitive to handle the dynamics of family. So I stopped talking about it. I stopped trying to prove what I saw, what I knew. But now, here it was. Written plainly in someone else's voice. Someone else saw it too. That validation wasn't loud or dramatic, but it felt monumental. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have words, but because for once, I didn't need them. The silence said everything. About 2 hours later, I was deep into reviewing a financial report, highlighting discrepancies, making mental notes to follow up with the accounting team, when my phone buzzed against the desk. I glanced down, assuming it was a calendar reminder or a message about the upcoming meeting. But then I saw her name. Message from Claire. "Nicole, I know you're busy, but can you talk to Liam for me? He's misunderstanding everything." I just stared at it. There was no panic, no anger, no vindication, only stillness. Because this message? It was so Claire. The urgency wrapped in manipulation. The assumption that I'd smooth it over, make the call, fix what she had broken. That I'd go back to playing peacekeeper like I always had. But I didn't move. I didn't feel the pull to jump in and rescue her from consequences. Not this time. I just watched the screen fade to black. And I didn't reply. Not right away. Maybe not ever. Because sometimes silence is the clearest answer of all. Then, another message, barely 5 minutes later. "Yours, boss. You have influence. If you say something, he'll listen. He'll reconsider." I stood, walked to the window, and looked down at the busy street below. All those years, I had waited for just one message from Claire when I was hurting. One word of encouragement when I had failed. Nothing came. But now that her world had cracked, she came to me, not to apologize, not to ask how I was, but to fix it. I returned to my desk and typed. "Liam didn't leave because of anything I said. He left because of who you are." And maybe for the first time he saw it. Claire didn't respond immediately. But an hour later, a new message arrived. "You're right, but I really don't want to lose him. I'll change this time. Please, just this once." I didn't respond. Not out of anger, but because I was past explaining myself. That evening, as I left the office, the early spring air was still crisp. The sunset burned orange over the rooftops. I walked slowly to the parking lot. No hurry, no weight on my shoulders. And for the first time in years, I felt light. I hadn't sought revenge. I didn't plan a scene. I just lived my truth and let the rest reveal itself. Claire had brought this ending on herself. And Liam, once enchanted by the illusion of a flawless family, had finally glimpsed the truth underneath. The truth I had been living on for most of my life. That night, I played an old playlist, the kind of music that once made me feel invisible during those early startup days when I was nothing but a dream and a drive. But tonight, the melody didn't fade into the background. It felt like a quiet affirmation, a soft voice whispering, "You made it." I had stepped out of the shadows, not with noise, not with a fight, but by standing firm. That's what Claire and everyone else in my family never saw coming. I didn't crave validation anymore. I didn't need applause. I just wanted to be myself and live a life I actually deserved. About a week after the storm settled, on a rare Sunday afternoon when I decided not to even touch my laptop, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I almost ignored it, but something made me glance through the peephole. It was my parents standing at the gate. I froze. Just for a few seconds, letting my mind catch up with what my eyes were seeing. My mom held a small bag. Her face looked tired, worn down by days that hadn't gone as planned. My dad stood stiffly beside her, arms crossed. His eyes weren't as harsh as they had been on that last call, but the coldness was still there. I opened the door. Said nothing. "Hi, honey," my mom said first. Her voice sounded rough, like she'd just stepped off a red-eye flight after a week of no sleep. "Can we come in and talk for a bit?" Wordlessly, I stepped aside to let them in. No hugs. No warm hellos. Just a silence, so thick it stretched from the hallway to the living room. I poured them each a glass of water. Sat down across from them. My mom looked around the apartment. It was neat, simple, untouched by any sign of their presence. Then my father spoke. "About your mom's birthday." I said some things I shouldn't have. I stayed quiet. He looked at me, a little longer this time, then spoke again, slower, like he was picking his words with care. "Maybe we've been a little hard on you. Claire's been a mess since the breakup," he added, "and your mom's been crying nonstop. So we wanted to sit down and talk. Like a family." Still, I didn't say a word. I just nodded slightly. I wanted to see where they were going with this. I knew this rhythm, the long, emotional build-up before they dropped the real reason they came. Right on cue, my mom chimed in. "Well, we actually have a proposal." She hesitated, then reached into the bag and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "We've thought it through. You're stable now. Your job's great. If possible, we're hoping you could help with a monthly contribution. Around $2,000. Just enough to cover living costs, insurance, some retirement savings." I looked at her, eyebrows raised. $2,000 a month? My dad jumped in quickly, afraid I'd take it the wrong way. "It's not much for someone in your position. We're family, Nicole." I straightened in my seat, kept my voice steady. "What about Claire?" My mom paused. "She's not doing well after the breakup. She's down. Work's not going great. We can't pressure her." I let out a soft laugh. Not out of anger. Just out of recognition. That line again. Claire couldn't be pressured. But I always could. I looked directly at them. "If Claire agrees to contribute her part, $1,000, and you both sign a contract, one that clearly states, when you both pass, all assets, including the house, will belong to me. Then we'll talk." The room fell into silence. My father's face darkened. His brow furrowed. His skin flushed red. "Are you seriously giving your own parents conditions?" I didn't blink. Not conditions. Principles. I've already spent nearly $16,000 on this family over 2 years. No acknowledgement. No thanks. If you want me to continue, then we need to be clear. My mother turned to him, her voice unsteady. "Maybe we should talk it over." But he sprang to his feet, his palm slamming the table so hard the glasses rattled. "We raised her for over 20 years, and now, when we ask for a little help, she demands a contract? Unbelievable." I stayed seated. Calm. My gaze locked onto him. "Dad, I don't owe you. If you think raising me was an investment that needs a return, we can calculate it, line by line. But I won't pay for it with silence anymore." He looked like he wanted to yell, but the words didn't come. His lips stayed tight, jaw clenched. My mother rose, gently tugged his sleeve. "Let's go." I stood too, walked them to the door. No hugs, no goodbyes. Just the sound of the door clicking shut behind them, and then quiet. A breeze drifted in from the balcony, soft and cool. The kind of silence that tells you something has ended. This time, I wrote the final line. After that day, my parents never reached out again. No calls, no messages, no accusations. Not even an apology for the outburst that cracked through my home like a storm. As if their disappointment was all my fault. As if their lives were wrecked by the daughter who simply refused to fold. But I wasn't surprised. I had grown used to that silence. Not the kind that comes from shame or reflection, but the kind that comes from people who don't know how to speak when they're no longer in control. And I kept going. Quiet mornings with coffee. Strategic meetings stretching late into the evening. Closing deals with partners who once doubted a young woman could ever run a biotech company. Through it all, I stopped feeling guilty. I stopped asking myself if saying no made me unkind. Because love isn't measured in dollar amounts. And it should never be tied to obligation. If affection only lasts as long as the bills are paid, then it's not family. It's a transaction. So I started cutting the invisible strings that tied me to roles I never agreed to. I removed the family photo from my phone wallpaper. I forgot Claire's birthday. I stopped sending just because gifts on holidays. I stopped hovering over guilt-laced texts, hoping they'd start with an apology. I learned to put the period on the sentence, myself. One day, during a team meeting, Liam, now officially our company's head of finance, walked in with an investment report. He was professional, focused, always respectful. We never spoke about Claire. Not once. And I appreciated that. Some truths, once understood, don't need to be said out loud. That afternoon, as I left the office, rain was falling in a light drizzle. I stopped by a familiar cafe and chose a seat by the window. On the wall, a wooden sign read, "Home is not always a place. Sometimes it's a choice." I sipped a hot latte and thought about the path I had taken. There was a time when I believed if I stayed quiet enough, gentle enough, responsible enough, I'd be accepted. But here's the truth. If you let people disrespect you, they will turn your kindness into expectation. Your silence into consent. So I chose to stand, not to fight them, but to protect myself. I set boundaries, not because I'm selfish, but because I finally understood self-worth isn't measured by someone else's comfort. And if anyone ever asked me, "Nicole, do you regret not helping your parents when they needed you?" my answer would be simple. I regret that it took me so long to realize I deserved better. Because real family sees you for who you are. Not what you give. Not what you fix. Not what they expect you to cover. I know my story might make some people uncomfortable. In our culture, walking away from family expectations is seen as betrayal. But I ask you, step into my shoes. The daughter shut out for not being presentable enough. The woman who paid thousands in silence and never once heard, "Are you okay?" I didn't choose family in the traditional sense. I chose myself. What about you? Do you think I was too cold? Or did I finally learn how to love myself at the right time? Share your thoughts in the comments. Because sometimes your story might be the light someone else needs when they're caught between duty and freedom. And if you've ever felt alone in your own family, believe me, you're not. Nicole's story is a powerful reminder that no one is obligated to sacrifice themselves for a relationship that merely wears the label family but fails to carry the weight of respect. When you finally learn to set boundaries, choose self-love, and stop allowing your kindness to be taken for granted, that's not selfishness. That's growth. Nicole didn't seek revenge. She didn't raise her voice. She chose dignified silence to reaffirm her worth. And sometimes the quietest action is the strongest one. Sometimes the firmest boundary is the first true step toward real peace. What do you think of Nicole's choice? Was she too harsh? Or was she finally protecting herself after years of being overlooked, used, and hurt? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more deep, meaningful stories that speak to the parts of us we often hide. Because sometimes hearing the right story at the right time changes everything. Nicole's story is more than just a personal journey. It's a mirror held up to many of us who've quietly carried the weight of family expectations, often without recognition or gratitude. For older adults, especially those who have lived through years of putting others first, this story is a powerful reminder that setting boundaries is not a betrayal. It's a form of self-respect. We are often taught that family always comes first. But what happens when that loyalty is one-sided? When love feels conditional and your worth is measured by what you can give, not who you are? Nicole reminds us that real peace often begins with saying, "Enough." It takes strength to walk away from roles that no longer serve you and choose dignity over duty. In today's world, especially as we age, it becomes even more important to protect our emotional well-being. We've earned the right to be treated with respect, not just as parents, siblings, or providers, but as individuals with our own needs and limits. If Nicole's story resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next meaningful story.